On the afternoon of October 3rd, 1993, the air at the Mogadishu airport was thick with the heat of the Somali sun and the tension of an impending operation. At approximately 3:40 p.m., the silence was shattered as a specialized task force from the 160th SOAR, famously known as the Night Stalkers, began their launch. This mission, codenamed Operation Gothic Serpent, was no small undertaking. It involved a sophisticated air armada of 16 aircraft, including the iconic MH-60 Blackhawks and the agile MH-6 Little Birds, supported by a heavy ground convoy of 12 vehicles. The objective was surgical and high stakes. Capture two of the most trusted advisors to the powerful Somali warlord, Mohammed Farah aided. Intelligence had placed these targets in a building located in the heart of the city, near the Olympic Hotel. As the helicopters lifted off and banked toward the dense urban maze of Mogadishu, the commanders and soldiers alike shared a singular expectation: that this mission would be a swift strike, lasting no longer than 1 hour. It was meant to be a precision snatch and grab, but as the coastline faded behind them, the elite task force was flying into a situation that would soon spiral far beyond their original plans. As the task force arrived at the target site, the operation initially proceeded with the high-level precision for which these elite units are known. Delta Force operators successfully fast-roped from their hovering helicopters, breached the target building, and successfully captured 24 suspects. To ensure the extraction went smoothly, U.S. Army Rangers dropped into 4 strategic blocking positions at the corners of the building, creating a protective perimeter against any outside interference. However, the city of Mogadishu was already reacting with unexpected speed and ferocity. Somali militia members began igniting tires across the city, sending pillars of oily black smoke into the sky as a signal to trigger a mass uprising. Within minutes, the streets were no longer empty. Thousands of armed locals and militia members began swarming toward the Olympic Hotel. The complexity of the mission increased almost immediately when a ranger named Todd Blackburn fell 70 feet while fast roping. This critical injury necessitated an immediate medical evacuation, which severely complicated the movement of the ground convoy as they tried to navigate streets that were rapidly becoming a battlefield. The 1-hour mission was facing its first major crisis. The afternoon took a catastrophic turn at approximately 4:20 p.m., a moment that would redefine the entire operation. The Black Hawk call sign Super 6-1, piloted by Cliff Walcott, was struck in its tail rotor by an RPG-7. The helicopter, suddenly robbed of its stability, spun violently out of control before plunging into a densely populated area of the city that was firmly under militia control. This single crash shattered the original mission plan. Up until this point, the focus had been on capturing advisors and extracting the task force. Now, everything changed. U.S. forces were forced to abandon their planned exit strategy. Instead of leaving with their 24 captives, the ground forces had to push deeper into hostile territory, fighting their way toward the crash site to search for survivors. What was supposed to be a surgical withdrawal turned into a desperate push into the heart of the city. The soldiers were now moving into a landscape where every window and alleyway held a potential threat, and the safety of the airport felt further away than ever as they moved into the shadow of the downed Black Hawk. As U.S. forces struggled through the narrow streets to reach the first crash site, the situation transitioned from a crisis to total chaos. A second Black Hawk, Super 6-4, piloted by Michael Durant, was also struck by an RPG and crashed approximately 1 mile away from the first site. This left the U.S. forces dangerously split between 2 separate locations, each surrounded by an overwhelming number of enemy fighters. At the second crash site, the situation was particularly dire. 2 Delta snipers, Gary Gordon and Randy Sugard, watched from above as a massive crowd of militia members closed in on the vulnerable wreckage of Durant's helicopter. Knowing that no ground help was immediately available, they heroically volunteered to be dropped off at the site to protect the injured pilot. Despite the incredible odds, they fought a legendary defensive action, holding off hundreds of militia members for as long as they could. They were eventually overrun and killed in the line of duty, an act of valor for which both were later posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. As the sun set, the battle for Mogadishu transformed into a brutal, overnight urban siege. U.S. troops became pinned down in the narrow alleys, unable to maneuver or retreat. Throughout the long, dark hours, they were forced into a close-quarters struggle, engaging in constant firefights with militia members who fired for the safety of rooftops and windows. The ground convoy, which had spent hours trying to reach the sites, was repeatedly halted by roadblocks and intense ambushes. The situation became so dire that it required an unprecedented international effort to break the stalemate. A massive international armored convoy was organized under the UN flag to rescue the trapped Americans. This powerful relief force included Pakistani tanks and Malaysian APCs, providing the heavy armor necessary to push through the militia's defenses. This multinational convoy had to fight a grueling path through the city, finally reaching the exhausted and pinned down soldiers at 4 a.m. the following morning. For those trapped in the alleys, the arrival of the armored vehicles was the only hope of escaping a city that had spent 15 hours trying to consume them.